At the time, it was really quite shocking. It was like somebody telling you that they had a terminal disease and that this young, vibrant person that you had known had received this prognosis of a couple of years left to live. There was so much fear in the healthcare system at the time about this disease, and people were terrified of catching it. And as a result, you saw care providers gloving up, gowning up, putting on masks, the whole bit, to go in and serve somebody a meal. These are the conditions under which people were spending their last days. John Gordon was one of the first people I knew that disclosed that he had HIV.
I found out I had HIV in Victoria, British Columbia, and I had had it for going on a year and a half before I came down to Ontario for a visit.
I was in college taking a course in communications, getting my degree, and before that I was in Vancouver. So I didn't really learn about HIV or AIDS till 1987. And it's, of course, you're backlashing. It's like, how could I have not known? How could I have not known?
John was an activist to start with, and finding out that he had HIV led him to become an AIDS activist. For example, he was in Grand Bend looking at t-shirts on a rack, and he came across a t-shirt that had the logo for the insecticide Raid on it, and it said, "AIDS kills fags dead." So he took that on. The London Free Press did a profile of him and what his life was like living with HIV. And it was a Saturday edition, so wide circulation. And it was really, for many people in London and Southwestern Ontario, it was probably their first time to put a face to the disease. I think John received excellent care and probably was a very well-informed patient. He would not have tolerated any of the indignities that may have gone with being a patient with HIV at that time. And what John had really envisioned was a hospice type environment for people with HIV to receive compassionate care and to live their last days in dignity. John Gordon Home opened in 1992, and it was actually incorporated as a not-for-profit entity in 1990 or 91 as the London Regional AIDS Hospice. By the time it opened, John had passed away, and it was named in his honor.
When people went to the John Gordon Home back in those early days, it was the London Regional AIDS Hospice, and people were going there primarily to die.
The prognosis was fairly short term. It was limited to a number of years probably. And the people we saw that were in need of that care at that point in time probably had very few options.
There were just a handful of medications that were targeting the virus at different stages of the development of the virus within the body.
There was no cure, and the treatments, there was AZT was the only drug really available at the time.
So people most often were not coming out of the John Gordon Home.
In 1993, Sam Conti was hired to be the executive director of the John Gordon Home. And he worked tirelessly to develop a new facility that would be completely accessible. I think the man worked 7 days a week for years in order to launch the new John Gordon Home, which opened in 1997. Also, what went along with the proposal to build a new facility was the proposals to provide more care, to have more staff, to have nursing staff on site all the time, instead of having to just rely on community-based nursing to drop in.
It's stunning here, it's just, people reel back, can't believe they have a one-room apartment with nice furniture and kitchen and that kind of thing. But mostly, I mean, there's a cook downstairs, and you get all these wonderful meals, morning, noon, and night. And you have DVDs and television you can watch. You read books and stuff like that. They got a library downstairs, and visit with people.
They arranged everything, put all the tools there for me to find an apartment, to get my medications organized, to get my doctors organized.
They're a bunch of us guys, and we just hunkered down for the winter. And we were like a bunch of army friends in a dugout. And it was actually a really good experience.
What happened after this facility opened in 97, we also saw in the late 90s the introduction of antiretroviral medication.
The treatments in the 1990s, of course, didn't come to, I don't remember, 95, 96, 97, it's kind of 100 years ago. But, and they just happened like that.
The big turn came in 1996 with a classification of medications called protease inhibitors.
It just had an incredible impact on the epidemic in that people started to get well.
And it's quite accurate when people say the dead were walking again. People just had 5 minutes left on earth. They were given these pills. It's like within a week, they're plumping out.
So we had 8 people move into the John Gordon home who were expecting to be here for end-of-life care, who started getting well. And some of them decided to move on. They didn't need to be here. It wasn't going to be their last stop in life after all. It took a while to evolve into providing what we now call transitional care. A person can live well with HIV if they take antiretroviral medication, if they eat nutritious meals, if they look after themselves. We don't know how long they might live.
Well, when I came to the John Gordon home, I was a little bit shied off about my condition, a little bit pulled in, maybe a bit of depression was sitting in. I looked at John Gordon home as just a transition of me finding a place to live, but in turn I found a family of friends here that have helped me be a little bit more comfortable inside my own skin. Mary, she helps out. She's always got a bag of food to send home with us, or cookies or treats or whatever we might need is always there. I'm pretty self-sufficient, always have been. I raised my son myself. So for me, that's not a big deal. But for a few of the people that I met here when I was living here and are now living out on their own, it helps out a lot.
Unfortunately, there's guys that fall back, It's no fault of theirs, really. They've been scrambling to make a go of it, And, I've just seen some of the guys. And then other guys, this is the greatest thing that ever happened to them. Straighten their head out. Now they're out, successfully living on their own, that kind of thing. So again, it's a wide spectrum.
I think it's got a very bright future. A very bright future, and a stepping stone for many more houses to open up that have this type of education, have this type of being able to lend a helping hand to get back up on their feet.
I would hope that this type of place, such as John Gordon Home, wouldn't be needed. But I really do believe with their evolution from going from purely a hospice to a supportive living environment, I think there's always going to be a need for supportive living. Actually, today, there's a greater need for longer-term supportive living for people because life happens.